Hey YouTube, I'm back with another video. This one is just like a story, just to share something negative that happened that maybe other people can learn from. It's funny looking back on it, but at the time it was very serious. So stay tuned. Let the sand play. For the record, I was not fired. I resigned from this position, but had I not resigned, I would have got fired. Okay, so basically, a hospital messaged my nursing school and was like, we're looking for students that want some patient care experience, gotta come work at Tex, and we'll pay them $13.90 an hour. So me working at City Gear, making $8.25 as a manager, I'm seeing dollar signs. I'm like, ooh, I need to get this job, and I only gotta work a minimum of 1 day a week, and I'm gonna make more than I make at this other job, working like 3 or 4 days out the week, mandatory. So I jumped on the opportunity. It was cool. I got the orientation, and one day they're like, do you want to go to the psych unit or whatever? And I'm like eager because it's my first semester. I'm like, oh, I can get ahead and maybe learn some things before I take this class. And so I go over there, and it's literally like a glorified daycare. Like, they have TV, they have their own rooms, they got roommates. We give them breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack. We take them to play, we take them outside. Like, it's literally like working in a daycare, and what seemed like easy money at the time. So as a tech, our job is literally to chart on them every 15 minutes, and the nurse has to chart on the patient every hour. So at one point in time, they're like, oh, do you want to, take them downstairs to play in the gym or whatever? At this point, it's maybe my third time going to the psych unit. So I'm thinking I have a hang of things, Never been properly trained, just sent over there, to work. And then the past other 2 times I've been, it was pretty easy. So I'm like, this isn't something new. I don't mind doing it. So we go down, come back up, and then like a couple hours later, somebody's like, where's so-and-so? And everybody's like, oh, he's in the bathroom, his clothes are on the bed, maybe he's taking a shower. A couple more hours go by, and they're like, okay, so he ain't been in the shower this long. So we go in his room, check the bathroom. This man is gone, y'all. So I'm just like, oh my God, we done lost a patient. They didn't tell me that you have to count, like, basically take a roll before you go down there, and then take a roll when you get to the place and get off the elevator. Take another roll before you get on, and then take another roll when you get back to the unit or whatever. So everybody panicking. The nurse, then charted on him all these hours without him actually being here. So her license is snatched. And then when I get back, me not, thinking, me being like naive and not really knowing much about documentation, one of the techs are like, oh, each patient care tech has to sign off on X amount of like slots or whatever on this little paper. So he's like, oh, you should initial here. So me not knowing any better, I just did it. So once my manager finds out about this whole shenanigan, she's like, well, I know it's not your fault. We didn't properly train y'all or whatever. And then I have to go to this meeting, y'all. And like, I go in there, and it feels like I'm about to go to jail. Like, there's all these people in there with suits on. Afterwards, I'm texting my mama like, I'm going to jail. I'm never going to be a nurse. Like, I'm going to get kicked out of nursing school. Like, I'm just thinking all this bad stuff. And then they're like, because you did document on this patient while they were gone, it's technically false documentation or whatever. And so she's like, either you can resign yourself or we will have to terminate you. And like, to this day, she'll still like do recommendations if I need her to. She didn't really like blame me for it because we weren't properly trained. When you do orientation, you're only on the regular floors. They don't take you to the psych unit and like tell you all these rules. So it wasn't my fault, but it was my fault because I documented on him. But the patient was not harmed. This is how I know this man has some sense. They roll the video back, and when we go down the elevator, basically he gets on the elevator, but he doesn't get off with everybody. So at that point where I would have counted everybody, I should have made sure the elevator was empty. So after everybody gets off, he goes down to the bottom and basically just walks out. But he calls the hospital later on. He's like, you know, yeah, I left and I'm not coming back. Just making sure y'all know that I'm okay or whatever. So he was fine and just like didn't want to be there anymore, which I can understand, because if you know you get some bad weed and you do something crazy and get admitted to the hospital, and now you're on a unit with people who are actually crazy for 2 weeks, of course you're gonna want to leave, and you're gonna feel like you're crazy by the time you leave, basically. So that was the story behind that. And I just learned like not to document on anything if you don't know what it is. Even I should just took that L and like not wrote anything on it and left it blank, because I probably could have kept that job a little bit longer. But in the grand scheme of things, it all worked out because I ended up getting a job at a doctor's office, an ENT, and under his license, I could basically do anything he wanted me to do. I did assessments on patients. I wrote down like basically an SBAR, which is like, you know, what's going on, what brought you here, the vital signs, what we're gonna do about it. And I got to give shots. I got to put in prescriptions that he was like later sign off on. I just got to do some like hands-on stuff that I wouldn't have got to do in the hospital. I got to do tech stuff and kind of nurse stuff at the same time. So it all worked out for me. But people who are not nurses yet, if you get a tech job, make sure you know what all is in your scope and what all your responsibility is. And if you don't feel comfortable doing it, don't, because you might get fired like me. So I thought my whole life was over and that I was never going to be a nurse, but here I am. So yeah, that's the story.